Anyway, we're tangenting here, and I'm seeing the host worry scowl on Daniel's face.
It's true. It's so true. I'm immune.
It is true.
I'm immune. I've seen it so much.
Moving along. Hello and welcome to Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name's Daniel Midgley. Let's meet the team. He's here for another year of shows, as specified under the terms of his release. It's Ben Ainsley. Hey, Ben.
Hello. Nothing makes a person warmer than contractual obligation. The warm, fuzzy feeling of ink binding you to behavior.
That's why I married my husband.
It keeps me doing what I do, so in lots of different ways. She's here after another birthday, which I forgot to say happy birthday to, but it's never too late, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hedvig Hurgard.
Thank you. Yes. Happy birthday to me. A bit belatedly, but all the same.
All the same. Did you have a good one?
I heard the tone.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say. What do you say?
Chilly is what it was. Which makes sense because you're in a very chilly place right now. You're in rural Sweden, if I'm not mistaken.
I am, but I am warm and cozy because we build houses sensibly for the climate that we live in.
To be alive. In order to continue to be alive. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got lovely radiators. This room is nice and cozy. I've also got a tiled, what do you call them in English?
A fireplace?
Tiled fireplace.
Fireplace.
Yeah, with tiles.
Or maybe like a hearth? Like that's the only thing I can think of.
Flame home. Flame home is what we call it.
Flame house.
You make a fire inside of it, and then the whole column heats up, and then the column stays warm and heats up your room.
I think that's supposed to be what fireplaces are supposed to do. Like they'll have a brick chimney.
But you close it. You don't have it like open.
Oh, yeah, nope, don't have a word for that.
Franklin stove, named after Benjamin Franklin, who invented it.
There we go.
No way.
I am extremely sus on that as well, but fair enough.
Okay, fine.
Anyway, they're great.
I'm not going to tell the American that Ben Franklin didn't invent the thing. It doesn't go well.
We also have a very special guest, honorary co-host, Grant Barrett. He's got a long bio, so I'm going to say hi before I do the bio. Hi, Grant. Nice to have you.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for bringing me onto the show again for this world of mayhem.
Grant gets a special nod or like kudos from the team because he is in the worst of all of the places to record from, the west coast of the United States. So Grant, what is the local time for you right now at the time of recording?
It's 5:21 a.m. and the forecast is 62 degrees and completely sunny.
That's
That's
amazing.
about 16 or 17 degrees Fahrenheit.
Listeners,
5 Celsius.
appreciate this man. Appreciate this man.
Appreciate him with a C and not a she. That's what we're saying. So here's what I've got on your bio. Grant is the co-host on the very popular, more popular than us, podcast and radio show Away with Words. Pretty good.
Very good.
Head of lexicography at dictionary.com. Nice. I know. Vice president of the American Dialect Society. Enthusiast of urban dance films. Also, his shirt collar size is 17 and a half. It's Grant Barrett.
It's this big head. I'm sorry. The shirts are just...
You big thick neck?
It's like a canned ham. One day we'll bust it open and find out what's in there.
So urban dance films, is that like, what's that one called? Bring It On.
Yeah. That whole genre. The worst films that you can imagine. I love them.
Step Up, all that stuff.
What's that one?
They're predictable. But the dancing skill always rises above the terrible plots. And the low budgets. The dancing is just something I can't do. So
what's that one called that was so weird with all the women dancing on the bar?
Coyote Ugly.
Coyote. Of course the men know that one with the scantily clad beauties. Of course they do.
That was massive when I was a teenager, yeah.
But do they know Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo? That's what I want to know.
Dude, that was the one. That was the one that launched the whole urban dance craze in my life for me. was Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. And I believe, is that a young Ice-T who was in that film, I believe?
I do not remember, honestly.
I don't know. He's in one of those very early films where they're saving the center, which they always seem to do in these films. They're saving the community center. And it's just a different Ice-T.
Let's have it right here. I just wish that there had been a sequel to that, like a Breakin' 3 Electric Jubilee. That would have been awesome.
Oh, that was
good.
Sure.
There was a writing room that needed your help, Daniel, clearly. There was a whiteboard with a big empty bit in the middle, and they just, after a certain amount of time, was like, "That well, fuck it, pack it up, guys. We don't have it. We do not have a successor to Electric Boogaloo. Let's go home." But what do I say to my son? You just tell him the truth. You tell him that you're not a man.
What are we going to tell Grant? I feel like we're ignoring the lead here. I feel like we should be focusing on his other achievements, which is...
Oh, no. You found out about that?
I don't know about that.
Away with Words, extremely popular, great show, lots of fun. You talk about language variation and you tell the story behind the expressions. What was your latest one about?
I don't even know, brother. I don't even know. You know how it is. You do these shows, and a half hour later, you're like, "What did we just? How did we just spend 3 hours of my life?"
It's so frustrating, Grant. Hedvig and I know what you mean. We'll be like, that thing with the thing and the thing, I don't know, it sounds familiar. Where Daniel will be like, you're talking about episode 76 with so-and-so and so-and-so. And what was interesting about that episode is it ran 12 minutes shorter than you would expect.
I mean, I would be surprised if I keep a consistent line of argumentation throughout these years. I'm sure I've contradicted myself or something. I've been like, I hate oranges. And then later oranges are the best fruit. Because I love to double down on silly, nonsensical things. And I think that's happened. I have a word for it, Ben, by the way. What? You know how people who don't have driver's licenses and who always get driven everywhere are passenger princesses?
Yes, we're podcast princesses.
I
think we are podcast princesses.
Yes,
my 2 podcast princesses.
We just show up.
She's like Daniel. She remembers everything. Here's one expression we talked about on the show recently. It just aired this weekend. In New Haven, Connecticut, instead of calling it pizza, they call it a beets.
A beets?
Sorry?
Yeah, it's from a probably Neapolitan dialect of Italian where la pizza or una pizza goes shortened to a pizza. And then because there's lenition for that final syllable, and the P is, those labial sounds do whatever the hell they want. So those other transformations came up, and it's a beets. And now it's kind of ensconced as what I call a Chamber of Commerce word where people in New Haven know that's what you say, and you're an insider if you know that. So
that is so cool.
It's like other Italian dialect pronunciations in the U.S. that have a little, not quite as large a life, but mozzarella becomes mozzarella and prosciutto becomes prosciutto.
Wow.
Oh, I've heard prosciutto.
So have I, from the bear.
Yeah, exactly, the bear. Well, gotta watch your Sopranos.
Yeah.
Where do they call it a pie? Let's go get a pie.
Pizza pie.
Yeah, I know it's.
I think that's sprinkled all over the East Coast because it's kind of one of those friendly arguments about whether or not pizza can be called a pie. So you eat lots of great pizza as you argue about it. It's kind of like barbecue. Nobody ever wins that argument, except everyone wins because they're eating barbecue.
Yeah,
that's right.
I always assumed it was just a thing of when this food was introduced potentially a really long time ago, the people who had only experienced British cooking saw this thing and was like, fucking pie, I guess. That's the closest,
I guess
that's the nearest handle I've got.
I think in Chicago, the deep dish ones automatically get the moniker pie.
Because they
require a serving utensil. You're not picking up those pieces with your hands.
No.
Not like the cardboard stuff they serve in New York.
Well, we're going to be talking to Grant about what's going on at dictionary.com. We want to hear all the facts. And then we're going through all the words on the American Dialect Society list and the Word of the Year vote for 2023, including lots of words that we missed. Now, let's see. Grant, I wasn't there for the actual event this time, but I have been a couple of times. And both of those times, you were operating the screen. You were typing out words, giving out information, and adding stuff hurriedly. Is that what you were doing for this one, or what role?
I was, and as a matter of fact, I just finished editing the video yesterday and posted it to the American Dialect Society website and YouTube channel. And in a few moments, the scheduled social media will go out with the links.
Nice.
Amazing.
Hot off the press, fresh out of the oven.
So it's a chance to to talk truth to power when I don't have a mic and I'm just running the overhead projectors.
Yep.
Wait, hang on. Can I establish, do you mean actual overhead projectors?
Yeah.
Ben.
Like
No.
Ben.
No.
Ben.
No.
What decade are you living in, brother?
Okay.
Is Australia that far behind?
It's not, but I'm not. Okay. Fair enough.
I am fully confused about what you're talking about.
Overhead
He's
projectors
talking about
are
the mechanical ones with the lenses and the prism or the mirror and the light
piece of
transparency.
translucent like paper.
Oh, yeah,
and
We haven't done that since the
yeah.
early 90s. So,
Oh,
no.
Mhm.
So I just use the term for LCD projectors because they project and they project overhead. So
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And you know what that means? That means we need a retronym for the old kind.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah. An acoustic overhead projector.
Transparency displayer.
Underhead projectors.
Can I tell you one of the things that I want for the future? Other people want flying cars, but I want this phone to have one more feature, which is a little projector up here.
Oh, yeah.
So I can project on any wall, high res, low battery consumption, no heat. That's what I want. So give me
Oh
that.
my God,
And
that is truly sci-fi because there are tiny ones that exist that you can like connect to via Bluetooth, but they're big,
they're like-
bulky, and they generate heat, and they're not good resolution.
Yeah, exactly. They're like a compendium of all the great literature in the world. They're that size,
Yeah.
Mhm. On the show, we're also going to be talking to author Tim Brookes. He's the originator of the website EndangeredAlphabets.com. It's about his new initiative, World Endangered Writing Day. It's going to be happening on the 23rd of January. We're gearing up, and I'm going to be talking to him.
That gives us a great promo to talk about the fact that we have a Because Language, linguistic holidays, and special events Google Calendar that you can subscribe to.
We do, and
Right?
we haven't been very
Yes.
we haven't been very forward about it. We've been, building it up. That's going to be promoted more heavily, and yes, it's going on the calendar. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yay!
Hey, guess what else I've been doing? Speaking of patrons,
Making them mail out.
Oh, I know. Yes, making mail out.
I have. I've been addressing envelopes because our annual mail out is on the way. Have you seen the videos? I've been doing videos on our channels. Oh,
Yeah, I've been seeing some.
Yes.
But don't do one of those George Constanza. Don't. Are you actually
Susan.
Don't die.
I'm not licking any envelopes. They all have.
Okay, good. Very good.
Those went out with overhead projectors or underhead projectors. So there's postcards, stickers, and all the items that I've been making those videos about. So, a bit of housekeeping. Patrons, if Patreon doesn't have your correct mailing address, I mean, maybe you didn't give it one, but you still want the mail out, at this stage, you got to send me an email, hello@becauselanguage.com, and tell me a mailing address. If you're not a patron, it's not too late. You can do it right now. You'll be helping us to make our regular episodes public and free for everyone. You'll be helping us make transcripts of our episodes so they're readable and searchable, and you can join our fun community of language nerds on Discord. Why don't you come join us? Patreon.com/becauselangpod.
And if you're listening and you aren't a patron and you just kind of maybe want to fuck with Daniel a little bit while he does all of this work, just send him an email with your address anyway.
No.
And maybe he won't notice and he'll just send you a thing.
That's a terrible idea, Ben.
That is terrible.
And you should do
That
it.
is. Oh God, poor Daniel. He's already editing and doing everything else.
Oh, I'm editing in my mind as we go.
Oh yeah.
So let's start with a story. Let's do some news.
Yay, Nate.
This one is Diego. He gave us this idea.
He's a good boy.
Could we do the show without contributions from our help people, including Diego? Answer: No, we could not. We could
No,
not.
Faircat and Diego in particular, I think.
They're awesome. But there are so many. There are so many, as we'll see during this show. Diego sent me a link on Reddit, as well as an article about this. I'm looking at it now. Do I share it on Zoom? Yeah, I think I do. All right. So what I'm seeing here is a map
I've
of
seen this map before.
the USA. Ben, describe to me what you're seeing.
So it is a I guess you would call it like a heat map or a region map of the United States with some different colors in different bits. Pardon?
Minus, it's United States contigual. It's minus
Oh,
Alaska,
sorry.
Hawaii.
Yes, you're right.
That is true.
And
The
Puerto
lower
Rico
48, I believe.
Tasmania
as
isn't on
Yankees
it
call
either.
Yep. And it has 3 regions: pop, Coke, and soda. Pop is kind of up up northward. It's where like if America was Game of Thrones, it would be like where Winterfell is. Soda is kind of on the west and the east, and Coke is in what you would describe as the deep south.
And that's 1947.
Yeah, so it also shows a shift. So all of those regions that I've just described, just imagine that they all recede considerably by 2023, and Soda is the like blitzkrieg army that has come in and just like obliterated the territories of the other. So there's still Pop Up the North, there's still Coke in the Deep South, but Soda now has like all of the Midwest, all of the West, and all of the Eastern Seaboard.
That is a pretty striking change, and it's not terribly unexpected, but I have my suspicions. Grant, craving your input at this stage.
I just don't want to know what the source is. I looked at that when you sent it around, and I'm like, they didn't link to a source. I read all the comments. I did a reverse image search on like 3 different services. I couldn't find the source for this. So where does this data come from? But I do want to point out that on the 2023 map, you see all those little Swiss cheese holes? Yep. Those are all urban areas.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought the same.
Except in Colorado and Montana, which I think that is like, an elk pathway for migration. I don't know.
Do you know what I reckon
like
that is? When I saw that, I went, that is probably fracking and resource. So that part of America has fly in, fly out work the way WA does, or where I come from. And so I think a lot of like urbanized people fly there for work, do the work, and then leave again. And so those places have like urban influence for that reason.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what you really want with this is Canada and, of course, the other 2 states, just to really see what's happening, because there's a lot of cross-border action as well.
Yeah.
Although Canada's population kind of falls down to the bottom of the country right against the border, like you shook an Etch-a-Sketch and all the sand came down.
It's like all the like crud at the bottom of like a glass of something.
Many people have seen this map, but a lot of people are surprised when they find out for the first time that in the U.S. South, Coke is a generic name for soft drinks, so that I could say, do you want a Coke? And somebody would say, yeah. And I'd say, what kind? And they'd be like, orange. And I'd be like, okay. And it doesn't have to be
do they then say Coke?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Or do they say cola?
No, they say Coke.
Okay. So can I have a Coke? What do you want? They wouldn't say, I want a cola, thanks. They would be like, I want a Coke.
No, cola would make you an outsider and you'd be shunned.
Okay. We are speaking to a man from Missouri.
Missouri. I'm from the Missouri generation.
Oh, okay.
Its map would look similar to this. Missouri is taking over Missouri.
Okay.
The Coke area also has Swiss cheese in it for at least some urban areas, as far as I can tell. Maybe that's like Austin in Texas or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not.
You're right.
Unlike the other 3 people here, my grasp of American geography is like.
Yeah, you're right. It's Dallas Fort Worth is the big one. Austin is the one to the lower left. I don't know what the one near Dallas Fort Worth is, but that might be. I don't know what that is. San Antonio, I have no idea. And you can also see it in Tennessee, Nashville, and the kind of Louisville, Evansville kind of. Oh no, not Evansville, Louisville kind of hole there. I don't know what that is.
So Daniel.
Yes. I'm here for both of you.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to be like, okay, so what's the so what here, Daniel? Why are you bringing this to the table?
I wanted to know if this was for real. I'm still not sure it's for real.
I have seen this a long time ago, if that helps. As in, I've seen this map years ago. Not this exact map, like it used a different color scheme and stuff like that, which is, I'm wondering if in the era of like people just generating memes and other like engagement farming, if they found one of those old maps and were like, oh, I'll spend 20 minutes in Photoshop fudging this around and putting it out again and having it be useful for a bunch of stuff.
Maybe.
I can understand why the name Coke is genericized in the South, because it was invented in Atlanta and it's big there. Do we have any indication of why soda has a big enclave in Missouri?
We do. As a Missouri boy, I can tell you, and this is the reason why these terms are different anyway. And this is people pick up the terms that their local bottlers use. Local bottlers get a license from the national brand to make these fizzy drinks according to the right formula and the right methods, and then they label them and sell them. So soda, that is nearly a perfect, in the 1947 map anyway, which continued well into the 90s, is a nearly perfect circle representing the regional market for the bottlers out of St. Louis, including the Illinois side. And actually, that's what's happening with Coke in the South. Atlanta is the source of Coke, and it spread from there throughout the South. It is a natural contiguous map because of that.
There we go.
And the western and eastern bits, because there's also like California, Nevada has soda, and also like New England and stuff has soda as well. Do we know what's going on there?
Ben mentioned the other maps. This is not the best representation. There's a site called, I think it's popversussoda.com, which has a more nuanced map, and actually have the raw data as well, even as bad as some of it is. And you can see more clearly there that it's those major cosmopolitan urban areas centering on, the megalopolis that includes New York, Boston, Philly, DC, and then in California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, whatever. These all picked up the same moniker because those two tend to be more commercially associated than anything in between. That's just one of the weird things about the United States. The California and the Eastern Seaboard, at least in that megalopolis, have far more in common than anything between those two states.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think what we're kind of looking at here is roughly a sort of early and then the remnants of a sort of nascent commercial, economic, and transport logistics zoning of the US, right? Like if you were like John Deere, say, and you were operating a series of dealerships, you would probably have a market that is vaguely similar to where pop exists, right? You would have like Montana and the Dakotas and Colorado and Utah and that sort of stuff. But someone working in Texas would probably have like Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can actually look at the Federal Reserve districts for Missouri, and because there's one in the Kansas City area and the one in the St. Louis area, and you can see that there's a division in Missouri, east and west as well, at least in the 40s. And actually, that's always the problem I have with the 22-theme map. I know from personal experience that pop is more widespread and more scattered throughout the United States than this map. And also, where's the soda pop sayers?
Yeah, true. Soda pop.
Me. I am one.
Clearly just fence sitters, right? People who were just like, I don't want to make anyone angry.
I'm straddling the dialect isogloss. Oh. Okay, so it sounds like we have our doubts about the veracity of the data for 2023, but do you think nonetheless it is credible that soda is making inroads, or is pop still holding its own? What do you think, Grant?
Yes, it is. It is possible.
Okay.
I just don't like this map. I want a source. I want the raw data, and I want my own GIS tools.
There we go.
Fair enough.
Well, let's move on. We're talking about World Endangered Writing Day, a new initiative by author Tim Brookes. And I had a chat with him. Here's the surprising thing. And of course, if I thought about this, I would have realized that this is so. But the choice of a writing system does the same kinds of things that the choice of a language does. People choose the language they do for different reasons. Geographic, social, transactional. Financial. People use writing systems to do the same thing. Okay. They use them as a marker of their identity. They use them to claim turf. They use them to say, we are here. Just the appearance of signage is a very important part of representation in a different script, a different language, and it can also arouse feelings, good and bad.
And it can be co-opted into like how you want to define a nationality, like if you want to reinvent, or if you want to branding is not the funnest word in the dictionary. But one thing that nation states do is they brand themselves as different from others or similar to others, etc. And like having a different script is, one way of marking that out. So like Thailand, I think, is the only one that uses their Thai script for writing their languages, right? And when you see a signage like that, you're like, oh, Thailand. Oh, that's a thing. I remember. That's a unique identity.
Korea as well. That's another idiosyncratic one that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of those that are like, there are way more smaller scripts that Tim Brookes knows about, but there was big famous ones. Yeah, exactly. Vietnamese still uses Latin, but with like very distinctive other diacritics. So you can still, when you see it, you're like, oh, that's, I know what that is.
So Tim has collected some stats on the disappearance of writing systems, which blew my mind. So I had a chat with Tim, and I started out by asking him, what is an endangered writing system?
I'm going to take us back about 60 years. And in the early 1960s, nobody spoke about endangered species. The assumption was that if an animal went extinct, it was its own fault. Yep. It was like stupid or in the way or something. And then what came out was the red list of threatened species. And it really not only introduced a new phrase, but it really changed the way people thought about species and extinction. And so all of a sudden, instead of it being like the dodo became extinct because it was too stupid to run away, which was kind of the general thinking, it became, oh, there are only 3 breeding pairs of Andean condors left. We should see what we can do about this and why this is happening. So the same thing happened with endangered languages in the 1990s. Up until then, it was generally believed that if a language stopped being used, it was kind of like, yeah, the tree got old and fell down. And with the endangered languages movement, they were like, no, this is because you have a culture that has become so marginalized that everybody who's left alive in that culture starts speaking some other language. And the only people left are those who are really elderly or those who don't want to speak some other culture's language. And so now, obviously, the endangered languages movement has, in the intervening 25 years, really acquired gravity, momentum, energy. But nobody has started looking at what happens, the same kind of phenomenon with forms of writing. In fact, most people in the, what used to be called the first world don't even know there are other forms of writing except maybe the Latin alphabet, Cyrillic,
maybe
Chinese.
Cyrillic. That's
about it, right. But in fact, there are 300 scripts to some degree in use in the world today, and the vast majority of them, probably 90%, are threatened.
90%?
Yep.
Holy shamoly, because I knew that about half of the world's 7,000 languages are threatened. I had no idea that 90% of the world's writing systems are endangered.
And in fact, most people don't know there are anything like that many. Most estimates say, there may be 50 different writing systems or 100. So I've spent the last 3 or 4 years trying to find out every single script that is in use in the world today. And as I say, there are something over 300, which is a lot more than most people knew. And of course, numbers 200 to 310 are the ones that very few people know about because their culture that uses them is so remote or poor or marginalized that they have no kind of internet footprint. They don't show up on anybody's radar, but they're there.
Okay, so I think that the writing system thing is a bit different from spoken or sign languages because spoken and sign languages go way, way back. A lot of these spoken languages weren't actually even written for a while. And I know that there were these movements during the 1800s and 1900s. Hey, let's take these languages that don't have writing systems and give them a writing system so that we can, give them a Bible or something like that or whatever. So whereas a lot of spoken and sign languages are killed and they go back quite a ways, but they're ending now or they're going dormant. Are the writing systems that are fading away, are they the ones that didn't take? Or what's going on? What have you noticed?
Yes, so it's a complicated and very powerful area because the people who are doing the defining and who are telling the story belong to the very cultures that are actually causing the extinction. So it's exactly like, let's say, for example, someone says, oh, the burrowing owl is in danger of extinction. And what you discover is that the reason the burrowing owl is in danger of extinction is because people are building parking lots over the burrows. But it's not cool to say we are killing off the burrowing owl. We just kind of hope they'll go somewhere else. Same with wetland creatures, etc. So what is happening is that, as with languages, there is no kind of gentle aging and decline period. Invariably, it's the result of either military intervention, or it's the result of a kind of economic dominance by some other culture. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So up until the middle of the 19th century, there was a kingdom called Champa, Champa, roughly in the middle of what we now call Vietnam.
Okay.
And it was being harassed for centuries by the Emperor of Burma and the Emperor of Vietnam. And eventually, in the mid-19th century, the Emperor of Vietnam just overran it. And the Cham people were sort of a perfectly sound, flourishing kingdom up until that point. They had their own culture, they had their own temples, they had their own form of writing. But one of the things that happens when one culture conquers another is that they think, okay, so how do we prevent a kind of resistance? How do we prevent an uprising against us? And the way you do that is by convincing the conquered people they have no hope. And in fact, the only hope they have is to really kind of change and become part of that conquering nation. And so the Emperor of Vietnam forced all of the Hindu Cham people to eat beef and all of the Muslim Cham people to eat pork as a way of degrading them and grinding them under the heel, but also as a way of reducing their sense of cultural identity and integrity. And taking away somebody's script and declaring it to be unofficial or even outlawed is one of those tactics. And so in many cases, that's exactly what has happened. It's what happened when the Chinese overran Tibet. It's what's happening right now in the what the Mongols call Southern Mongolia and the Chinese call the autonomous province of Inner Mongolia. It is a deliberate policy attempt to superimpose one's will on a defeated people or a minority or indigenous people.
Well, it sounds like what's going on with endangered writing systems is exactly the same dynamic as what's going on with endangered languages, that we're talking about colonialism, domination, not so much like conscious moving away, not conscious language shift, although I guess that could happen, but it sounds like the same mechanisms are at play.
Yes, very much so. And it's interesting, if you think about, for example, the Amazigh people, who are also called the Berber people of North Africa. So there was a time when they occupied North Africa all the way from the western borders of Egypt to the Canary Islands. This was their land. And then starting with the Romans, and then with the Arabs, and then the French, increasingly these newcomers would establish that not only the official but the sophisticated language and writing system would be, for example, Arabic. And so increasingly anybody who spoke any of the Amazigh family of languages or wrote in Tifinagh, their script, would be identified as being backward or primitive. And you see this happening all over the world. So it then requires a major effort not only sometimes like an uprising, but more often a very long, slow process of sort of cultural re-identification, of saying, we are not just the outsiders, the primitives, the backward people. We are people who have our own pride and our integrity, which is exactly what's been happening, for example, with the Native American movement in the last 40 years in the United States and the First Nations movement in Canada, for example.
I'm thinking of some protest signs from Vukovar in Croatia, where people wrote on their signs, "We are Vukovar, Roman script, not Vukovar, Cyrillic script."
That's very interesting you should say that, because there is an even later and more, or I guess I should say more recent movement to write town names on the signs that, announce that you're coming into a particular town in Croatia in glagolitic script. Cool. So glagolitic script was created probably 1,000+ years ago as a means of writing the language that was called Old Church Slavonic.
Yeah.
And it enjoyed a brief period of currency and use in the Eastern Church.
You see it in the artwork. It's got rad downstrokes and really thick.
Yes,
really thick.
absolutely.
Really cool. Yeah.
Great stuff. And increasingly it was taken over by Cyrillic until eventually there were literally 2 priests left on an island off the Dalmatian coast who were still writing all of their stuff in the glagolitic script. And interestingly enough, when fishermen got a new boat, they would get the boat blessed by the priest, and then they would write the name of the boat in the glagolitic script because, it's the script of God. This is what you do to try and get protection. And then all of that eventually faded and was destroyed in the Yugoslav Civil War. But when Croatia emerged as an independent nation at the end of that war, they started using glagolitic again as a kind of rebranding.
Wow, it really does sound like the way that people used language as a marker of identity, they also used writing systems as a marker of identity in just the same way.
And what makes it really interesting is that, of course, writing is visible.
You can see it on a T-shirt a mile away.
You can see it on a T-shirt. You can see it. Well, for example, if you fly into Casablanca now, then there is a very recent neon sign on the outside of the airport building, which announces the name of the airport in Tifana. And so what that says is, for the first time, we are here. So the Amazigh people actually are a majority, not a minority, in Morocco. But because nothing is written, there's been no signage or anything in their script, it's a way of making them disappear. And now you actually have, by royal decree, the slow reintroduction of the Tifana script on the outside of public buildings, government buildings, schools, the airport, for example. Then all of a sudden, somebody flying into Casablanca can say, wow, what does that sign say? What language is it in? What people are here? And of course, the Amazigh people have been there all along, but they've been invisible. And it takes a major initiative on the part of a government to say, actually, what? We need to change. We need to acknowledge that these people whom we've been, kind of keeping underfoot for 1,000 years are actually here.
You've been working for many years to raise awareness of endangered writing systems, both with your website, endangeredalphabets.com, and also this new event that you're working on, World Endangered Writing Day, which is coming up really soon, 23rd of January. I want to know how you got into writing systems, but I also want to know about this new event. Where do you want to start here?
Great question. So let's start with how I got into writing systems, and we'll come back to World Endangered Writing Day.
Yeah.
So I got into writing systems purely by accident. One Christmas, I decided I was going to carve my family members signs, wooden signs that had their name on them because I had no money and I wanted to come up with Christmas presents. And anyway, so that was how I began carving in wood. And really, the only thing I can carve is writing. I can't carve you like a buffalo or a giraffe or anything. But after I had done that for Christmas, I sort of stumbled on the fact that so many of these writing systems around the world, which I didn't even know about, are not taught in schools, are not used officially by the government, in some cases are banned or suppressed. And so I thought, I will try carving some pieces of text in some of these endangered alphabets. In fact, I coined the phrase as a means of sort of documenting them, preserving them. And I went to the website omniglot.com, which has it's like an online encyclopedia of writing systems. And the example that Simon, the curator of the site, uses for each of these scripts, or for many of these scripts, is the Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is 2 sentences basically saying, hey, these people have rights. And that was my first exhibition. And at that exhibition there were 12, 13 pieces, people said 2 things that I wasn't expecting. They said, one, this is art, which I hadn't thought about at all. And the other was, this is really important. You need to keep doing this. And that's what really kind of set me on this passage.
Wow.
And then the story about World Endangered Writing Day is a great story, and it involves David Crystal, who is kind of the David Attenborough of language.
Oh, yes.
Author of the Cambridge Encyclopedia of Language and many, many books on language. Great guy, wonderful person.
Yeah.
So he actually, I contacted him when I first started working on the endangered alphabets, and he said, you are the only person in the world who is studying script loss. And he offered to write the introduction to my first book, Endangered Alphabets, back in 2010, which was typical of his generosity and kindness. So about 2 years ago, I started working on a new book called Writing Beyond Writing, which began when I had done one of my carvings of a script that's used by the Adinkra in Ghana. And it's not a phonetic script. It's a series of symbols, each of which stands for a proverb or a piece of traditional wisdom.
Oh.
And I posted that on Facebook, and a very distinguished linguist responded, this is very nice, but it's not writing. And I thought, wow, what is writing then? And in particular, why are these extraordinary forms of graphic communication from around the world, why are they being dismissed in this fashion? So that's how the book came about. When I finished it, I sent it to David Crystal for him to look it over. And at one point in the book, I talk about the fact that in traditional Balinese culture, they have one day a year which is devoted to books and to writing and to wisdom. It's the day consecrated to Saraswati, who is the goddess of writing and wisdom. And on that day, in traditional Balinese culture, they take their books, which in Bali would be traditional palm leaf manuscripts. So it's like an oblong piece of palm leaf that's been written on and then perforated, and a string is used to hold them together. So they take these books out and they dust them off and they venerate them. They literally put them in a household shrine dedicated to Saraswati because they recognize the importance of writing. They recognize, in fact, the kind of divinity of writing. And I thought, and I say this in my book, we don't have a day that respects writing, that really recognizes the role of writing in our lives. And David Crystal wrote in the margin, you should invent one.
And so you did.
Yes, so I did. I'm like, okay. how do you go about inventing a day? Do you need to ask someone's permission? And it turned out, well, you just go ahead and do it. And so I did.
So what kind of things are going on for World Endangered Writing Day? What kind of events are people having?
Yeah, so like everything I do, it sort of is a full spectrum event in that I'm a person who takes some things very seriously and some things I'm very passionate about. And then also I'm a lover of games and stuff. So during the course of the day, there is the kind of thing that you might expect, for example, at a conference. So we have a number of just wonderful speakers who are talking about either particular cultures or about writing in general. One person is talking about Andean quipu, the knotted strings.
The knots, yes, that's right.
One person is talking about a course that she and her colleagues have developed to teach the pictographic Chinese script, the Dongba script, which is just fascinating. And they've done this incredible job developing a MOOC to try and teach a script, which is, there are wonderful paradoxes at the heart of that. Anyway, so we have a series of these live stream talks. And in a way, they are the kind of the most substantial part of all of this. But then I also wanted to recognize and praise people who, over the last few years, I've discovered are working to reintroduce their own script as a way of revitalizing their own culture. So we have a bunch of awards for people who are doing teaching activities or artistic activities or calligraphy or type design or various things that are just, they're very thankless. They're often working against the current of mainstream in their culture. And so I thought, right, we should draw attention to the fact they're doing this so that people start taking notice of it. And then we have this online atlas of endangered alphabets, which I created 5 years ago, where we have 100 scripts that are profiled and photographs. And we're adding another 100 scripts. I'm calling it the second wave launch of the atlas.
Nice.
That's going to be at endangeredalphabets.net. We have games and puzzles. It's the launch day of, as I say, my book, Writing About Writing. We have book giveaways. People have sent books in endangered scripts from all over the world that we're going to be giving away. And we also have some video and some text from kind of like reports from the field. For example, what is happening in Bali to reintroduce the really beautiful Balinese script. So, this is all sort of centered around our new website, the World Endangered Writing Day website, which is endangeredwriting.world. And then all of these live streamed events are going to be on our YouTube channel that can also get picked up by other channels around the world, thanks to a very sophisticated platform that I don't even understand.
Well, we're certainly going to be putting lots of links up to your work on our website, becauselanguage.com. We're going to be getting ready and trying to do something for World Endangered Writing Day. I feel like there are so many things that I wasn't even aware of that are sort of growing out of this. I mean, we don't want to diminish the importance of languages that don't have a script, and there are lots of those. And we can help people work on those, but I feel like it's helping to get people to reclaim their writing system, which is sort of like helping them to reclaim their language, which is sort of like rebuilding community, which is sort of like rebuilding identity. There's a lot going on here.
Oh, there's no question whatsoever. And in fact, on our poster, it says save a script, save a culture. So in a way, this is partly about linguistics, but it's really about human rights and social justice. Again, for years, people have propagated the myth that language and writing systems just kind of die out or fade away or whatever. But really, in both spoken and written language, it is an issue of the survival of a culture. And we also know that if a people decide to or are compelled to stop using their traditional script, then within 2 generations, that script becomes unreadable because everyone has been learning a different script, usually the Latin alphabet. And what that means is that the entire written record of that people becomes incomprehensible to the very people who created it. And I'll give you an illustration of just how personal that is. Obviously, it affects legal documents, affects land rights, it affects sacred texts, poetry, etc., etc. But I got an email from a young woman in Java. So Java is an island. It's now part of Indonesia. It has a long history before the creation of Indonesia. And she wrote to me in part, to tell me about the efforts that were taking place to begin to reintroduce the Javanese script, which is not only a really beautiful script, but does a whole series of things that our alphabet doesn't even think about doing. It's remarkably interesting and complex, and we can talk about that if you're interested. But the point she went on to make was that she had come across some letters that her grandfather had written when he was a soldier taking part in that struggle for independence after World War II. And she was really interested in this because she didn't know much about her grandfather, and she didn't know anything about what those times were like. So she had this unbelievable resource in her own hands, but she couldn't read it because he had written it in the Javanese script. And as soon as Indonesia achieved independence, the government decided to use the Latin alphabet. And so she just couldn't read it. So there you have this great illustration of how she had been kind of cut off at the root, if you like, not only from her family history, but also from her sense as a Javanese person in a culture that goes back thousands of years.
Now, we mentioned that you're the author of the new book, Writing Beyond Writing. When is that available, and how can people get a hold of it?
Actually, in pre-publication date, it's available right now.
Okay.
If you go to our principal website, endangeredalphabets.com, and click on the shop button, then Writing Beyond Writing will show up. And I'm in the process of getting it listed on Amazon, so it should show up there sometime in the next few days.
And World Endangered Writing Day is coming up on the 23rd of January, 2024, and every year thereafter.
Especially given the fact that we are doing all of these things on what is virtually a zero budget. We're hoping that we'll start gathering more support, and certainly we're hoping that future years are going to be much more interactive and also much less monolingual. So one of the great weaknesses of everything that I do is that I am limited by being a member of the dominant, culture. And so I can't read most of the stuff that I carve and demonstrate in display in these endangered scripts. And people say, do you speak all these languages? And I say, no, I don't speak any of them. So I am the classic old white guy who needs to be kind of politely shunted off at some point in the near future. So that people who know these cultures better than I do, and ideally are from these cultures, they can take over a bigger and bigger role in World Endangered Writing Day, and in fact in the Endangered Alphabets Project.
We've been talking to Tim Brookes, creator of the website endangeredalphabets.com, author of Writing Beyond Writing, Lessons from Endangered Alphabets, and originator of World Endangered Writing Day. We're going to have links to all those things on our website, becauselanguage.com. Tim, thanks so much for getting together and talking with me today, and I hope that the project is a huge success.
Thank you so much for great questions and for also going into an area that is so unknown to most people that even the act of formulating the questions is a step into the unknown.
That's true. Thanks so much, Tim. We are playing our favorite game, Related or Not.
George isn't at home. Please leave a message after the beep. Yep.
Oh, I thought it was going to be related or not.
Related or not.
The Christopher Cross song. Related or not, I'm talking on air. I never thought I could be so etymology.
That was the best one.
Wow.
That was the best one.
Yes.
It's called Filking.
That is the theme song from now on.
I believe it was actually Joyce Scarberry, and not Christopher Cross.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Daniel had to in before it, didn't he? Actually.
The reason I know this was because I had it in my mind because it's featured in the viral video Dog of Wisdom, and I was showing that to my daughters, and they were like, "What is that?" And so I played it for them in the car. They were entranced. They realized this was pop gold. They wanted to hear it over and over again.
Wow.
And you know, you listen, and it's a solid piece of work even today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still thinking about it, right? So yeah,
I put that on the shoulders of Seinfeld more than the quality of the song that itself. That would be me.
Wow. Okay. Well, our listeners have given us some great etymological puzzles, but Grant, would you like to test us on some words that might be related or not?
Related or not? Yeah. No. Thank you for the earworm. That's like my 7th this week. Yes. So I have. Do any of the 3 of you listen to my radio show's last podcast?
Yes. It is one of the few linguistic podcasts that I do.
You can lie, Daniel. Have you caught up? That's the question.
No.
The reason I asked,
caught up. There is no way I have caught up.
I am in a weird podcast funk
Oh.
where I essentially only listen to, I don't know why, but my brain works really well with whodunit podcasts. I listen to radio plays of murders constantly. And then ancient history, and then conspiracy theories. I have a lot of other podcasts in my feed, and I believe very much in that, like, podcasts you should just go with your gut feeling. And if I keep stats of my gut feeling, those are the 3 categories I listen to. I don't listen to basically any other science, any other linguistics, anything else. So if you, Grant, can pivot to working in a murder mystery.
I can. I absolutely can.
I think that would be Claire, wouldn't it? Claire would handle that.
Oh yeah, Claire would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, I can definitely do that. That's totally great. I just want to say that we have the evidence here for the radicalization of young women in the world, and it is podcasts that has turned them into these danger, blood-loving fiends.
Oh, wow. Podcasts. When will you stop doing great things?
So the reason I asked you if you listen to the radio show is because we talked about this on the radio show, and if you listened to the show and you had caught up, you would already have the answer, and this would not actually be a puzzle for you.
Fire away.
So the question is the word clot, C-L-O-T, related to the word klutz, K-L-U-T-Z?
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
As usual, I use my other Germanic language knowledge. So klutz sounds very much like a Yiddish loan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
And in Swedish, you can say klant, means like someone who is clumsy.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who's clumsy is klumpig. And one word similar to clot, you mean like a clot like in the pipes?
Yeah.
Blood.
Yeah, or
blood.
Or arteries. Yeah, a blood clot would work too.
Right. So klump means a piece of something, or like that what. So I think
clump,
they,
like
they
in English.
could be related.
Clump.
A clump, sorry, yes, clump. Yeah, same. So I'm gonna go with yes, but I don't know how klumpig and klump are related. But
Wonderful.
let's go.
I love
yes.
your thinking here. So smart.
I'm going to go no. And my reason for going no is because of the racism. I reckon medical stuff being as like hoity-toity as it is, they would not have used a word from Yiddish because they would be like, no, we must use Latin things for all of the stuff or Greek things.
Okay.
Wait, what?
Listening here. I'm thinking about this. Daniel?
Wait, I don't understand the argument.
Okay, so
Ben, what's the argument?
Clot in English doesn't mean clog, right? Clog is a different word, and that's the thing that happens in pipes. Clots are almost entirely relegated to like functions within the body. And so as a medical term, I don't think medicine would have been like, oh yeah, let's use a slang Yiddish word. They would have been like, no, we must use like a 6-syllable blah, 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 blah,
okay.
or whatever it
Well,
is.
that's not the question is not the direction. Did they pull it from Yiddish and name a bodily thing after it?
I think no, because they're wankers.
The question is, do they tie back
Oh, okay.
to the same word? And I know that, with having Germanic lexification.
Clotted cream.
I'm going to go against Ben and go yes.
Come on, Ben.
I think it might
Beat
be.
the two linguists. This is what I want.
It always behooves you to agree with Hedvig.
Oh, damn.
Let me explain this.
The second compliment I've gotten today. It's very
Here's the thing, Ben. You were close, but you didn't go far enough back. Where did Yiddish get it? Yiddish got it from German.
German.
Okay.
And so the German KLOZ means a lump or a block or
Okay.
a tree stump.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the magic word there, because that KLOZ also gave us clot. But
Wow.
interestingly, there's a third word that I could have thrown in here, and I could have started with clod, as in somebody
Like a lump
who
of
makes a
earth.
lot of mistakes or is clumsy, is a just a variant of clot. So CLOD, meaning somebody who's clumsy or ungraceful, stems off originally just simply being another spelling of CLOT, clot. And there's another whole thing happening with all three of these words. It's the idea of a lump. Klutz basically means a blockhead. Somebody who has a lump or a knot of wood for a brain or for a head. And that's kind of why klutz.
Right.
And so blockhead is a fourth word that we could throw in there as being semantically related, though not etymologically related.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Okay. Yep.
Interesting. That's fun. You know, it's fun for Swedish people in Netherlands because you guys are talking about US stuff, so I'm gonna ostracize you guys.
Yes, please.
In the Netherlands, the word for client or like customer is klant.
Klant.
Because the client has just gone to klant. And in Swedish, that means a klutz. So you get letters saying like, dear klutz, like you should come into the bank or whatever. And it's
Dear
like,
blockhead.
okay, right. Thank you very much. I know I'm an immigrant, but
No, you're allowed. That's fair.
Oh, the Germanic people are so direct, aren't they?
yeah.
I don't know.
All right. One for me, one for Hedvig. Our second one is from Diego. When you go on a journey, you might write about it in your journal.
Okay.
Related or not.
yes.
Journey and journal.
Ooh.
Okay, Grant, we're
Grant
starting with
coming in
you.
hot.
Yes, I'm seeing the root of day there. I'm thinking journey had something to do with a day trip, and journal, of course, is something that you do daily.
Okay. I have a
Yeah.
yes.
So the French word for day is jour, J-O-U-R,
Jour.
but which is direct Latin root. So I think they both ultimately go back to Latin.
Okay.
Hard agree. I was also going to say day.
Okay.
Well, Grant said that it behooves me to agree with Hedvig, so I say no. I'm gonna go with their what do you call it? False friends. That
False
they
friend.
accidentally ended up being very similar,
Okay.
but are not related. Like maybe journey doesn't even come from French or Latin. Maybe.
Okay. I know the answer, but before I did, I wrote down my guess, and my guess was yes. I thought they were both related to Latin diurnalis, so maybe a journey is the amount you can travel in a day, or maybe that's what you do in the day, not at night. And a journal is where you write down what happened that day. So 3 yeses and a no. The answer is yes, pretty much just like I said.
Ben's disappointment is heavy.
I have one.
Hedvig's got one. Let's hear it.
Okay.
That'll be our third one.
Okay. So grant the name
Ooh.
and grant the verb. To grant someone.
I recuse myself.
Okay, because you know. All right. Look, I've done 2 no's. I'm going to make it 3 for 3. I'm going to go. Grant, no, has nothing to do with like allowing or the gift of or like a, all the things that grant means as like a verb. allow. I reckon the name comes from something different, and it probably had different letters. So, like, maybe before it was Grant, it was like Grump or something.
Okay. It behooves me to agree with Ben. I think the answer is they are not related. I think that the name Grant has to do with granite or something strong, like a rock, because that's what he is to me.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Hedvig, are you taking a guess, or do you know?
So I have Googled, but
Cheater.
I think the places. Well, I said I knew one.
Okay.
I was the one initiating. So, like, hopefully I know. So as far as I can tell, from some sources, grant the verb comes originally from a Romance root meaning to entrust, and grant the name. Probably, but we're not really sure. It might come from some sort of Romance word meaning tall, grand.
Well, exactly.
So they're not related.
Or large, or great, or fantastic, super. Those things, yeah.
They all
the
fit.
superlatives.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
But name.
How tall are you, Grant?
I'm 6'2".
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
pretty
what
big.
is it?
What's that in metric?
1.83 meters? I don't know, something like that.
Bigger than that.
Okay.
6'2" is like 1.8.
It's
I think.
187, because
Okay,
that's how
is it?
tall I
Okay.
am too. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. 1.87.
6'2".
I once told somebody in France that I was 2 meters tall, thinking that a meter was a yard. He's like, "You must be very tall," because we were talking on the phone.
2 meters is a
A
very
meter
big
is
human
roughly a
being.
yard, right?
Well, that's 3 for me and one for Ben. Very good. Thank you, everyone. These were nice and straightforward. Thanks to Diego for sending that one. Keep sending them. We are having fun with them. We're having a chat with Grant Barrett. Grant is the head of lexicography at dictionary.com, vice president of the American Dialect Society, which holds the annual Word of the Year vote, and also the co-host of Away with Words with Martha Barnett. So, Grant, we want to ask you about all the stuff that's going down at dictionary.com. First of all, congratulations on getting the gig. That is amazing.
At dictionary.com, you mean? Or ADS,
Yes.
or Away with Words, or all three?
Let's focus on dictionary.com for a moment, because I really want to know what goes down.
Yeah, that happened this year. Earlier this year, they hired me on. It was a bunch of people whose names I won't say, but if I did, you would know them, were also in the running, so I felt rather chuffed, so to speak.
Good use of language.
Vindicated? Was there a sense of vindication at having vanquished?
Not vindicated. I mean, vindicated means that you were professing a truth, what you believe to be a truth that nobody agreed for a long time until they did. No, I'm not vindicated, but
Okay. Very good.
Encouraged.
Well, it is encouraging.
And the nice thing about
Yeah,
dictionary.com
yeah.
is that they don't know that they're supposed to be paying lexicography type salaries. They're paying .com type salaries, so it's even better.
Goodness gracious.
No one tell them. No one tell them.
I'm supposed to be reusing my tea bag several days in a row, but I don't have to anymore.
Nice.
Ooh, interesting. And is this? I'm asking as a precarious academic. Is this? How long are you going to work there? Is it like until you die?
I'm going to ride this candy cane bus until the wheels come off.
Or can I murder you? Is it one of those Klingon things that if I assassinate you, I automatically get the gig?
First of all, I have some really disappointing news for you and everyone who's listening. As the head of lexicography, my title is officially director of lexicography. As a director, I don't actually get to do very much lexicography on a given day.
Oh.
It's like, it's a lot of meetings. However, I get to rub shoulders with Corey Stamper, who now works with me.
Nice.
Oh, that's so cool.
Corey
We
Stamper,
love
who
Corey.
formerly of
Nice.
Merriam-Webster, best-selling author of a fantastic book on dictionaries. She and I work together, and she and I, like 2/3 of every meeting we have are just us goofing off. So that's a delight. It's a wonderful
Oh my
thing.
gosh, that alone is
lovely.
worth doing the job.
Yes. And the whole team is great. We have some staggering amount of expertise of people who've worked for all the major English language dictionary publishers and we have people in Wales, we have people across the United States, and it's very good. It's one of the few ongoing lexicography operations that has paid staff in North America.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I think Merriam-Webster is the only other one maybe Cambridge. I think Cambridge is withdrawing to all their staff to the UK eventually. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I wanted to go, because I wanted to ask you, when you started your career in lexicography, the scenario was very different. I mean, print dictionaries were the norm, and now this isn't so. What else has changed since you started this biz?
More dictionary companies have stopped updating, stopped publishing, or just gone out of business. Macmillan and Longman are the two most recent ones that I can think of. They just, if you see them online or you see their works, just know that they are zombie outfits.
Is it because people are consolidating more and not the customer base doesn't support so many different ones?
Maybe part of it, but I think really what's happening here is that Google has eaten everyone's lunch. So Google licensed what I believe is Oxford's domestic dictionary content, not the OED, but the what is called NOAD and NADI, the stuff that appears in your Mac dictionary app. And so when you Google a word and they think because of your keywords that you want it defined, they show dictionary content at the top of the search results.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to click through to a dictionary.
Nope.
And it's kind of like what Craigslist did to the classifieds ads in the backs of newspapers. It's just they took a chunk of a profitable niche and destroyed it. So, I mean, it's easy to be doom and gloom about dictionaries because they're always in jeopardy. It's hard to get anyone to commit to something that takes these kinds of personnel and financial resources and carry it out over a period of years. People want quarterly finishes to work schedules. And with dictionaries, there's no end to the work, and you never really completely get that done and dusted kind of moment.
Grant, do you, I often think when there is a thing that is very important societally, right? Like when society can broadly speaking agree, thing X is really important, but unfortunately thing X is not something anyone really wants to pay for anymore. We usually hand that over to the government. Right? In some way or another, right? Where we say public funding is the thing that is required to make this work. So we do that with public broadcasting. We do that with, certain sort of research and development tasks, often defense, but sometimes not. Governments also do R&D in drugs and medicine and stuff. So do you think that might be a future direction where it just gets folded into some sort of public good type thing?
Maybe there are a couple things happening here. I don't remember if Ben mentioned it, but I was one of the co-founders of the online dictionary Wordnik with Aaron McKean and Orion Montoya, and we had great hopes. I left Oxford University Press for this. I had been there a few years working on a couple different things, and what we discovered ultimately, and there were many other factors for the reason Wordnik never really exploded as a hugely successful company, is that people like good enough.
Right.
They don't need perfect. And so you, as a dictionary editor, you have to adjust that mindset. We could also look at the Dictionary of American Regional English to more directly answer your question, Ben. The Dictionary of American Regional English, published for 20 or 30 years. It's a fantastic work. It's right up there with the English Dialect Dictionary in terms of the quality of the lexicography and this snapshot of language. But at some point, the National Endowment of the Humanities said, we're not going to fund this anymore. That NEH is one of the big governmental funding sources here for these kinds of humanities projects. And so DARE is kind of nothing's really happening with right now. I think there's one fellow who occasionally makes updates, but it's not his, it's not anything grand.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah. And with anybody, I've always had this dream that if I were to win, the lottery or something, one of those big pots, that I would give a giant check to DARE so that they could pick back up where they left off, because there's so much more work to do. But even when you look at something like Wiktionary requires, I guess, basically what you're saying, the generous donation of people's time and interest. You have to be a little obsessed to do it. But Wiktionary, I used to have tons of criticisms of Wiktionary, but now almost every time I go there, Wiktionary pleases me. You can always quibble with the dictionary, and that's amazing. So to wrap this all up, because do not get a lexicographer talking about the future of dictionaries, because you'll bore yourself. But to wrap this all up, I would say we should expect further contraction in dictionaries. We should expect dictionaries to kind of stop being updated as regularly. Not from dictionary.com's point of view. We do every 6 weeks we roll out new updates to the dictionary. We actually have a paid staff, and we have a team of paid contractors who are, again, bring this world of experience. But from what I see from my colleagues, I went to the Dictionary Society of North America conference in June of last year in Boulder, Colorado. And, it's the usual. It's everyone going like, where's the work? What's our future?
Yeah.
And a lot of people who work in academia, that's what they've done. They've moved to academia, but in academia, you sometimes forget that you don't have the resources, that you can't ask these commercial publishers to do all these fun, great things to a thesaurus because you've just tripled the workload.
Yeah, it's very work heavy to produce something like a dictionary or thesaurus. It's one author writing a book of 400 pages is already quite expensive, but a whole host of lexicographers putting together a dictionary is a massive amount of work for sure. So when Google shows those hits, I just did a little search and I saw they get it from some sort of Oxford search.
Yeah, that's right. Oxford Dictionaries Online, I think it's called, or Oxford Reference. They change the name every few years. I'm not sure which it is.
Do they still update?
They do, but what happened was a couple things. They used to have a North American office in Manhattan for Oxford domestic dictionaries. That office all of that work is now done in the UK.
Right.
And I don't even know that they're putting out print editions of what's called the New Oxford American Dictionary, or known as NOAD in the trade. So, they update.
Okay.
And it's a different editorial, or at least it used to be. I'm not as in touch as I was, but it's a different editorial staff than OED. But they have direct ties to OED. Since OED is so ponderous and slow, you have to do your domestic dictionaries more often. But yeah, the Oxford does update.
Okay.
But really, these days, if you want the most current stuff, you have to go to Wiktionary. Our dictionary.com. Again, we keep up. We do our best to keep up. Again, but if I had 100 more lexicographers, I still would not be able to catch up with the flood of language. It's just always too much.
Goodness. That's amazing.
That brings me to another question I was going to ask you, which is sort of that, and no offense, but published dictionaries and the description of language is a relatively recent thing. In the history of, if we take of how long languages have existed and how long writing have existed, the last 200 years is probably where 80% of all the dictionaries were published.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So is it the case that it's sort of like a bit of a blip? And we're going to go back to the...
Surely not.
You're killing me, Hedvig. I have such a high opinion of you.
Yeah, this is what happens when you compliment me twice. I get very scared and
right.
attacked.
What does he want? Let me fend him off with an insult.
No, because I like dictionaries and I like learning languages. And I understand that dictionaries are a description of a language at a point in time, and they are not the definite source of what a language is.
Yeah.
Right. Words exist even if they don't exist in dictionaries. But what do you think? Yeah. Do you think it'll be a consolidation that it'll be Oxford Languages, dictionary.com, Wiktionary, and then everything else will sort of disappear, but that those will... Because there's still a need for it, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, one of the weird questions that lexicographers, for everyone who doesn't know, a lexicographer is somebody who compiles and edits dictionaries. One of the things that lexicographers hear all the time is, what are you working on? Isn't the dictionary done? Aren't you finished?
No.
And it's not finished. So the work has to be done by somebody somewhere. But it is, it's unless you have the free paid army of Wiktionary editors, it's expensive. It is absolutely expensive. So I think consolidation has already happened. For example, many years ago, Dictionary.com licensed the Random House Unabridged Dictionary, and that's our core that we've added. We've probably changed 60% of it in some way or another, and that's our core. Typically, dictionary licensing, just like Google licensed Oxford, is the way that dictionary content moves from company to company. Certainly, when I worked at Oxford, licensing the dictionary content, slicing and dicing in a bunch of different ways for digital use or print use, and maybe focusing on science or education, that was a profit center, because the same content just cut a bunch of different ways. So that's not really consolidation, but it demonstrates that the longevity of dictionary content is there. So I don't think that dictionaries are going to go away. I think you may be right that we're on the downslope of the dictionary blip. I think that's a very, very perceptive observation, I think. And as much as it pains me to say, but the evidence is there. over the last 30 years in the North American dictionary world has been nothing but companies consolidating, closing, reducing, laying off, or reducing their publishing schedule, what have you. So the evidence is there. I mean, we can ignore it as much as we like. That said, on a positive note, everyone that I work with, and both for the American Dialect Society and everyone I know in the Dictionary Society of North America and everyone at dictionary.com, the language nerd will not be held back. The language nerd will not be held down. They will. These people will take a Sharpie and write dictionary entries on a bathroom stall if they have to. It will happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about how words become candidates for inclusion. I mean, how do you decide it's time? What kind of track record does a word have to have? How do you do it?
Well, fortunately, the restriction on labor and resources is one of the ways that you can just obviously funnel. You filter, because you really have to be very clear with yourself about, I don't have time for everything. Where do I draw the line? And the line is usually drawn is this widely used? And because we're an advertising-based dictionary at dictionary.com, are people likely to go to this page if I make an entry for it? And you do have to put in, that's the thing about the digital world. Now we have, the lexicographers are not separated from the commercial aspects of the business. Whereas when you were working, when I was working in a cubicle at Oxford University Press, I didn't really have to think that much about it. Somebody would just give me work to do and I would work till the deadline, And then it was their job to package it and market it and originally to come up with a product idea. But now it's all integrated.
So you guys have to think about click-through potential and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is, as a lexicographer, you want your work seen. And as satisfying as it can be to complete an entry, if you complete that entry and then think that, 100 people a year are all that's going to see this, that doesn't feel very good. So you do want to work on the entries like Riz, for example, which was our most looked up word in 2023. You do want to work on an entry for Riz and really get to the bottom of it. And then you will know that, many, many thousands of people a day are going to see your work. And it's pleasant. It's satisfying.
Are you taking a look at when people search for something and it's not there? You can see that people are looking for a word that doesn't exist. So it's like, let's do that one.
I have that. A lot of times they're just misspellings. And so that's good. That's good information too, because I can make sure that they go to the right entry, even though they've misspelled it. But yeah, I think we call it the anomalies page. So we have something called the anomalies dashboard that I can look at, and it just shows me stuff that's popping up with frequency, and that's the that's where we want to be. And so I can get stuff from that. Yeah, absolutely. Can I
ask what's like bubbling away in the anomalies right now? Like what's in the cauldron?
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah.
How about this? So how about this? Not really, but because that's like trade secrets, but I will share a couple things that we added to our reading program recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So so these are just citations, so they're not full entries. So one of the things that we shared is the leaky vaccine. This is on our reading program. It's a vaccine that does not generate enough neutralizing antibodies to stop the virus that it's supposed to stop.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's stuff
it's not like potent enough.
Yeah. Or it's poorly configured. Something's wrong with it. There's also a water sommelier.
Oh my God, Americans.
So these are people who think and study about flavored waters and how they work with meals and with recipes.
Wow.
It's so funny because like Swedish people are making fun of this right now because on like water TikTok, which is a thing.
That's where we got the site.
Americans. Yeah, and basically Americans have discovered cordial.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. It's just cordial. And they're calling it like, I'm going to make cucumber water. And they put like a powder and they're like, yum, yum, yum. And it's like, you just made cucumber cordial.
Meanwhile, like Australians are sitting there just being like, bruh.
I think for North Americans, by the way, Hedwig, cordial usually refers to a liqueur, which is an alcoholic-based flavored drink.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those funny things where they have the same word.
What do you call the syrup or powder you put in water?
They don't really have it. They don't have a name for it.
No, we probably go with generic. We probably would use Kool-Aid as a generic.
Yeah.
Probably soda.
Lemonade?
No, lemonade's a different thing. Lemonade's a drink.
And also, our lemonade is usually not fizzy.
Yeah, it's lemon juice with
lots of sugar.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So those are just a couple of the things that showed up on another one. Here's one. This is reflective of our times. Climate abandonment area. This is an area that whose kind of, I don't know, the area has changed due to drought or flooding, and people move.
Right. Yep.
And so people literally abandon the area because they can't live there stably anymore.
Wow.
Like Ghost Town when like the mill shuts down and everyone's like,
Bingo.
Gotta go work somewhere else.
Yep.
But it's just like, oh, this is a floodplain. We can't live here.
And unfortunately, floodplains usually have very rich soil, great for growing crops, and people are just very attracted to them.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are just three things. So not quite the question you asked, Ben, but I think that satisfies.
I'll take it. I'll hoover up whatever crumbs you cast my way, Grant.
I have a supervillain pitch for regarding the question of lexicographer's work is never finished.
Supervillain pitch. Oh, hell. I'm with you.
It is finished.
I'm just going to say yes.
If everyone who speaks the language dies.
Oh.
If everyone speaks the language, what?
Just dies.
Dead people don't innovate.
Well, we don't want that, do we? I mean...
Just to be clear, Hedvig, are you actively sort of sanctioning the death of every English-speaking person in the world? Is that what you're advocating for here?
I'm just saying that earlier, Grant talked about, like, that people said, like, oh, haven't you finished a dictionary yet? And I was like, well, of course he hasn't, because, like, people keep on speaking and coming up with words. And I was like, well, what if they didn't, though?
When society collapses and all the people die, we won't need lexicographers anymore.
Or everyone just STFU, you know?
To be fair, though, we won't need any of the other people either, because they'll all be dead.
But I think that would be a real conversation starter, wouldn't it? Somebody says, isn't the dictionary done? You could be like, the dictionary's done when all of you are dead.
That's
what I'm saying.
Hedvig, do these supervillain ideas come to you often?
I just know that, you know how Marvel is obsessed with the eco-fascist supervillain trope of like, oh, overpopulation, Thanos needs to kill everyone, or like Poison Ivy, like people are too bad against the environment. I want to pitch it into like different contexts, and this is what I have for you.
I know people who work for Marvel and DC Comics. I'm totally taking this idea and crediting you, Hedvig. I'll take it right to them and say, have I got a writer for you?
Nice.
Well, I mean, it's about as, I'm not going to say more, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Keep going, because this evil side of you was kind of a surprise. Kind of attractive.
I think Hedvig's gripe is that it's not evil enough. She wants the evil to be more evil. She's like, what is this stupid halfway sympathetic villain heel turn nonsense? Let's get some real villainy in here. This feels like a linguistic It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia skit where you're like, okay, what we should do is murder, and someone's like, murder's wrong. You're like, no, sorry, I didn't explain it right. What we should do is murder.
Is murder.
Murder. But my other question for you, Hedvig, is a little personal, which is, why did you think I was the guy to bring this to?
Because you said people keep asking you why your work isn't done.
Did that signal to you that I'm all about massive death and the purging of the
my
world
little
of
brain
the human
just
virus?
has a little other node that's like, what would end his work? That's it.
What I love is that she didn't think like, oh, Grant is going to be down with death. She's going to be like, oh, do you know what Grant probably hasn't thought about? Mass murder. I should definitely clue him in. That's
in
what
the service of easing the burden on lexicographers. I love how she doesn't go, oh, I've got an idea, Grant, but I think I'll tell you after the recording. No, she's like, I'm going to drop it now.
Hedvig, let me just say, this, for a lot of reasons, this doesn't fly, but from a lexicographical standpoint, if we don't talk about your criminal intentions, you're reducing the number of sources I have for new language. And that just won't fly.
Less people making citations. All right.
No. I want more to choose from. I want more. I don't want to choose from the direct that's left. I want
the cream of the crop.
Lots of people giving me stuff rising to the top instead of just a few people giving me a little bit.
You're not
rising.
a completist. You don't like do all the side quests.
I can't. I don't have the money, the staff, the time. I can't be a completist.
I think you would
in my
find,
personal
Grant,
life, I'm a
that if you
completist.
killed everyone, you could.
I think we've talked about this long enough, don't you?
Anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm wounded. I need a balm for my injuries.
I have a new question, Daniel, that is not about mass murder. What about languages that aren't English and dictionary.com?
We include as many as we can of words that have actually seemed to have entered English. So we work on it. So, but we don't specialize in any wholesale dictionaries in other languages because, again, staff, money, time. But what's interesting is a lot of the new words that are coming in, of course, are food words, and that's always fun.
That's cool.
That is fun. Okay. I like food.
Food's good.
And what about Englishes that aren't American or English? What are like South American English or Kiwi English?
World Learner English.
You know, whatever they're up to.
Yeah, we work on those too. We have one Canadian and one Welsh speaker. So we don't have a broad sample. You like to try to get your lexicographers to be completely in touch with whatever they're writing about, whatever they're compiling. But yeah, we do our best. Certainly when our reading program is set up in such a way that it will draw from the entire English-speaking world. And so that stuff enters. But we do mainly serve a North American audience, although our Indian audience is growing.
Fair enough. I like it when people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like someone could be like, "Oh, Grant, we want you to do everything." And you're like, "Look, I'd love to do everything. But I don't have the time. And this is what I'm getting paid to do, and this is what our audience wants." That's really
it's practical,
really like
right?
that.
Yeah. Give me $10 million and I'll make all your dreams come true except for genocide.
Everyone but Hedvig's dreams.
It sounds like dictionary.com is really well placed in the confluence of lexicography and internet and distribution. It's a good place that you're at. Do you feel that? Do you feel like you're in a good spot?
I do, yeah. One of the things that I discovered when I came into the company was this inner vitality that everyone here had, this huge amount of energy and the collaborative spirit. And it's weird to talk about your employer in positive terms because everyone's like, he's just saying that because he's promoting the company, or he's just a PR shill. Why did I listen? But you know me from other arenas. You know me from my other lives and on radio and for the American Dialect Society. So believe me when I say that was so encouraging to show up and see all of these people kind of on the same page, working in the same direction, having enthusiasm, cross-collaboration. And as we all know, not every employer is like that. And I think it is reflected in the products that we make and the output that we have and the way that we interact with the world. I think it comes through, and it's coming through more and more with just beyond social media, but it's even like the little messages that you have, just the way that you tweak a page, for example. People pick up on that, even if you're not overt about it. So yeah, I agree with you. We're well positioned. We're, times are always tough in the dictionary business, but I think we're doing a great job.
Nice. All right. Thank you for telling us about the inner workings of dictionary.com. I feel like I know a bit more. But now I want to switch over to the American Dialect Society Word of the Year and talk about some of them. Tell us about what you were doing. You were working the projector. What was it like there in the room? What was the vibe?
So we met in New York City. We did on the January 4th, Thursday, we did the nominating session on January 5th. We did the actual vote. So typically, and this has grown over the years because it didn't used to be like this, it's one of the main events of the Linguistic Society of America conference. And the American Dialect Society is what's called a sister society, and they meet at the same time because they have overlapping members. And so it's a room that seats 300 to 500 people. I don't know. My back was turned to the room because I was looking forward at the speakers and the overhead projectors, the screen, the LCD screens, the projected video of.
I just call them. Look, you don't have to be so. I just call them projectors. That's all. Like, it's just I've only seen overhead attached to the old kind. That's it.
All right, so I'm redundant.
Okay.
Grant, we like you so much.
Redundancy.
So this is why we do this.
This is why we feel comfortable bringing genocide to your door.
Oh, we're just laying into this is just the Antipodean way of showing appreciation.
Yeah, it's true. I'm sorry.
The Scandian Antipodean way. All right, so the mood in the room. So what I'm doing is I'm from my own laptop. I'm controlling what's on the screens. It includes the nominated words. It includes me live typing any new nominations, and it includes my typed snark.
I detected some snark. I detected that.
There's always snark. There's always snark. And sometimes it's a way of adding more information. Like if somebody is speaking from one of the floor microphones and I know who it is, I'll put their name and their university on there. If someone says something that I think is patently untrue, I'll just correct them on the screen and say, no, that's not true. And sometimes if somebody goes on too long, no, I mean, that's the thing is I get a chance to kind of like not be the final word, but like it's a big voice. You know, it's to be on these two giant screens that everyone can read. If you watch the video that I posted to the American Dialect Society website of the 2023 Word of the Year vote, you will see that some of my jokes fall flat, but I get laughs. And what it does is it changes the tone of the room because some people who've never been, they think it's a bunch of dusty linguists talking about, Akkadian and Sumerian and the ultimate roots of language and whether or not Tamil was the mother of all tongues, that sort of thing. It's not. It's really a lot of goofing off, and I add to that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something that you corrected someone on?
Oh, that's not nice. And
that'll be on the video.
Person, but just
one of them was people kept saying that, and you've already talked about this, where people kept saying that, and you've had him on the show, that Cory Doctorow coined enshittification. But the problem with the word coined is that sometimes it means invented for the first time, and sometimes it means said in a prominent way. And so that second definition, he qualifies for, but that first definition, he does not. So when somebody says Cory Doctorow coined enshittification, you have to correct them and say, no, he popularized it in 2023 because there's numerous forms of shittification and enshittify and so forth that existed before he stepped out with his really strong, absolutely accurate opinion about the gradual degradation of what we've take to be online services.
Yeah, we complain about Google Chrome a lot on this show.
Really?
I switched over to Firefox for the new year.
Nice. Well, we're going to be looking at these words because there were a lot that we missed. If you're listening on audio, we'd like to encourage you to follow along by looking at the American Dialect Society press release. We're going to have a link in the show notes for this episode. That's on becauselanguage.com. Let's start at the bottom. Hey, there's no emoji category this year. What's going on?
No, there wasn't an emoji category because we didn't get many emoji nominations. The only emoji that we have, which won its category, was the watermelon emoji won the category of Political Palestine. Word of the Year. Yeah. And this represents the Palestinian solidarity because if you look at the Palestinian flag, not only has it got red and green, but there's a red triangle that kind of looks like a watermelon slice.
Yep. It's nice and simple.
Yeah, it's simple. And but it also is what's called algo speak. In order to not get filtered or flagged, you use the watermelon emoji in order so that you can talk about things without somebody coming down hard on you. Because in this world of all these bots and tools and alerts, there are people out there who all they do is set up alerts to come attack you for their points of view when you use a keyword that they think is bad.
That's one thing that I really hate about the conflict. I mean, there's so much to hate, but I really hate how every term that you could possibly use to talk about it has been co-opted, dog whistled, turned around.
Yeah.
Like, it is impossible, right? You cannot have a conversation where you're both on the same dictionary. You're both defining words the same way.
No, I mean, a term like Zionist can mean different things depending on who's talking about it. Like alt-right assholes have learned that they don't say, I hate the Jews, but if they say, I hate Zionism, and let's face it, there's a lot to hate about Zionism. But if they say, I hate Zionism, then their buddies know that they're talking about, I hate Jews. So
the coding is just ridiculous. But it's always been the case in politics. But these different sides, and I won't say there's two because there's more than two, but the different sides of this particular conflict have been honing their language for a long time. Since 1948? And they've got it down cold.
Yep. Well, that was our political word of the year, the watermelon emoji, but there was also context.
As in the word context?
The word context. I don't want to talk about all these. I'm just going to blow past these. Okay. But if there's anything interesting to say, I want to know about it. There was context. There was hot labor summer, which Pharaoh Cat told us about, and we didn't get time to get to, but that was a good one. Summer of 2023, when a number of unions went on strike. And then I/P, shorthand for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Was there anything interesting in any of those? I liked hot labor summer.
Just that if you want to learn more about why context was nominated, watch the video. Sanja Lanehart, who was a linguist at the University of Arizona, Tucson, twice stood up and talked about how, particularly in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, context was thematically an incredibly important word, because everyone, and including also in the comments that got presidents of universities fired or quit, the context intentionally being misconstrued is a big deal in both of these different arenas. But typically, thematic words that don't actually have a lot of heavy use tend not to win their categories.
Okay.
The context here is just a theme.
I want to go to digital word of the year, which was enshittification, but here was another one, chat. Collective term of address for those participating in a streamer's chat.
I've been thinking about having this as word of the week. Yes, I love it because so for example, to give some context for what I think this word is for example, if you are a Twitch streamer and you stream regularly and you ask your chat for like, what should I name this new character in the game or something, and the chat responds and they're like, Dustin, Jordan, Arsehole, like whatever, and then sometimes the sort of collective mindset set in and they all start rooting for Puggles, and then you say, oh, chat named the character Puggles.
Yep.
Right? And it's as if chat is this like hydra with like lots of different heads, and somehow it becomes a thing. And I love it when podcasters or Twitch streamers start like, oh, chat always helps me with something.
Chat, what do you think?
And it's sometimes the same people, but sometimes it's just like, I really like it.
Yep.
And it's fun to be in chat. It's fun to be chat.
I love it, the chat that we get in our live episodes that I stick in the video. It's like seeing this running commentary. Although,
nice.
Pharaohcat on Discord and Jenna on Facebook pointed this term out to us, chat to refer to a group of people. There was a link on our Discord to a Tumblr post by Immaculate Giraffe, which tried making the case that this is a fourth-person pronoun. Let's just hold our fucking horses here, because it's hard enough to...
I don't know if we need to be that.
It fails the substitutability.
It's strange.
It fails the substitutability test.
Tell me more.
You need to be able to...
What do you mean? It can.
If it's a fourth-person pronoun, it needs to fit in all the places that you would use a pronoun. And I don't think chat will do that.
It doesn't inflect like a pronoun. It's hard enough making a pronoun, but we're not going to see the formation of an entirely new group like fourth person.
Well, it reminds me of the paper that came out of Baltimore a few years ago where somebody was claiming that yo had turned into a pronoun. Really, all it was sometimes it was they were calling it a vocative use at minimum, but it wasn't. It was just an emphatic.
Yo said...
What's yo?
Yo said what?
Yo, like... Yo, it's like...
Yo had his shoes up on the table.
Yo had his shoes up on the table, or their shoes. Yo brought pizza to the wedding reception or something like that. So.
And that wasn't a thing? Or was it a thing and then it stopped? Or
the problem is like their number of examples were too small, and it wasn't clear that it was larger than a small int group. But I'm kind of misremembering maybe, but anyway.
All right, cool. Okay.
I like big brain galaxy thinking. I run a project where we read grammars a lot, and we often have to be like, what is a word? And sometimes we just go off. And I mean, it's lovely, but then at the end I have to like, it's a bad hard line boiled down to thing where we have to make a decision. But sometimes we just have a bit of fun. And I think you can have a bit of fun with calling chat a kind of pronoun, but then you can also call people a kind of pronoun, etc. So if you let in that one, you kind of have to let in lots. But
yeah, so I don't. Hey,
it's fun.
Yes, so no.
So I don't. Tell me about Gyat, which was nominated for Informal Word of the Year. I'm just kind of bouncing around because this is fun.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Gyat. People have done backronyms for it, but you should ignore them all. Spell, please. Gyat. Sometimes double T, but really what it is an emphatic pronunciation of God. Generally like a shortening of goddamn.
Oh, like, oh my God.
Okay. It's kind of like how bitch became biatch. That kind of emphatic pronunciation which contorts its...
Are we taking it from sounds. Queer communities? Is that where we have appropriated it from?
No, African-American communities, young black people. That's typically where it came from. Particularly that D turning into a T in emphatic speech is a characteristic of black speech in the United States. You can see this in people writing the word lort, which is similarly used emphatically, L-O-R-D-T instead of my lord. They write lort. There's a few more of these, but like that D just having that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so initialism or acronym of the year, which was an ad hoc category, looks like FAFO, fuck around and find out, which first appears in our generativism show in September 2021 when Hedvig said it, so prize goes to Hedvig, but we didn't include it as a word of the week. Yeah, you did. Told David Adger, so
that's a super old saying.
We're still in the fuck around part of fuck around and find out. It's super old.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but I'm not surprised. It's. I mean, things don't have to be unique or super new to make it into one of these word of the years.
No, not at all.
Right?
Not
it just needs to be
prominent. That's it. It just needs to be prominent in the year in question. Yeah.
So why was this prominent? Was it COVID and not getting vaccines?
Well, how shall I put this? None of the I personally would not have nominated any of these. I would not have had this category, but I wasn't in charge because I just don't think that any of them were particularly significant for 2023.
Now that I know that you were running the projectors, is just I'm imagining all of the snarky shit you were putting alongside these things where you like you put up FAFO and then just like in parentheses, boo.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of it, but for this category, I just basically ignored it and let the vote go because I was like, ugh, what can I say?
I will communicate my disdain by not giving this section humor. You will get nothing from me. Initialism's nothing.
I want to stand up for Am I the Asshole?
Yeah, but in 2023?
Yeah, no way.
Well, then let's go on to the AI-related word of the year. The winner was stochastic parrot, as popularized by Dr. Emily Bender. You can check out our episode with her for that. But I noticed dictionary.com's word of the year, hallucination, which we've talked about a lot on the show, which is something that large language models do. They make up facts, they confabulate. What was going on for that one, Grant?
Yeah, the room generally was down on AI. Pretty much every time it came up, the linguists are not fans of it. Actually, Emily Bender herself, as you know, because you've had her on the show, stood up and spoke on behalf of Stochastic Parrot and talked about how pleasing it was to have a word that she coined on the nomination list. And when she was speaking, one of the snarky things I did was I called up a ChatGPT window and said, "What do you think of linguist Emily Bender?" And it had some nice things to say about it, but she's like, I'm not reading that. I don't read machine generated text. So she's
like a proper, like, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of take on it.
Yeah, very impressive. She's a great speaker. She's fully versed in her topic. She's just she like controlled the room when she was at the mic. It was really nice. But that didn't stop me from snarking. But dictionary.com did hallucinate because we had seen much earlier in the year, actually, at least by April, that AI was going to be one of the themes of the year. So we started tracking pretty much all the terms that are on this list except for Stochastic Parrot. And just kind of ultimately the answer came down to what are we going to choose out of this whole list? AI as a category, if you go to Google Trends, really shot up in 2023. So any of these words could have stood in for the others. But hallucinate had that real nice feature of taking an everyday word and giving it a new technology spin. This is the same thing that happened to spam. This is the same thing that happened to virus. And it just kind of seemed to fit this category where technology does whatever the hell it wants with language. And we were internally, our discussions included how many people working in so-called AI or machine language learning don't like the term. And there was a lot of commentary at the ADS vote of people saying, well, this is not good because they're machines and they don't actually have minds and therefore they cannot hallucinate. But this is kind of a weak argument because so much of English is metaphorical,
Yeah, true.
Let's not be too strict about that.
We have been trying to find a better word like confabulate, but one that doesn't imply agency or mind. And on our Discord, Anne suggested, says, listening to the Word of the Week episode now, and I think synthesize is a good substitute for hallucinate.
Yeah, I listened to that episode too, and I thought you guys got there. There was I can't find it right now, but there was a term that Google had for hallucinate that I'm trying to find here.
I don't like synthesize. Oh. Because it means multiple things. So a synthetic product is something that is like man-made. So like plastics don't occur in nature. They're synthetic material. But synthesize can also mean taking different viewpoints and combining them into a coherent picture, but all those things still being true. What the large language models do when they quote unquote hallucinate, right, is that they are very good at writing text that looks like a human wrote it, but they know nothing about the world and what real things are. So if you say complete this sentence, it'll be like, oh, I'll put in some more words there that I know occur in speech, but I have no idea what they mean. It's similar to how we can say that colorless green ideas sleep furiously is a grammatical sentence. It's a language, it's English, it's a sentence. It's nonsense, but we can make it. And that's all we're asking these large language models to do, right? We're asking them to make strings of text that look decent for grammatical English. People imbue them with, common intelligence and etc., but they don't have it. And I think hallucinate is good because it taps into the misunderstanding people have about it and says like, look, they can make things up. They can hallucinate things based on some data they have. So I think the metaphor works well in practice for making people understand that there is a problem. And I think that's so good that it's worth it, that it doesn't even really mean that.
I like that too.
I love it, but I think what the linguists are arguing against is that humans have a tendency to anthropomorphize. Like if you put two dots on a curve on anything, like a rock or a can of soda, people will treat it like a living creature. They'll baby it, give it a name, and carry it around with them like it needs to be fed and changed.
Yep.
Hey, you leave my Tamagotchi
but we
alone.
do that. So why don't we do that? But if we need to make them understand that the rock is evil, then telling them that the rock isn't a person is going to be too big a step. We have to tell them the rock has bad intention towards you. I'm just saying, like, people can't really cope. Yeah, it's too much.
The term that Google had used at one point for hallucinate was they called hallucinations inceptionisms.
Cute. But I don't.
Too difficult.
Yeah.
Too difficult. I like hallucinate.
We got to keep it going. I want to get to the words of the year. What happens is there's no list of words of the year. It gets decided right there on the floor. People nominate words of the year. There were like 9. And were there any that you liked?
Oh, I had predicted Enpoopification months ago as the winner of the ADS vote. And so
Cool.
and of course, if you look at the video that I posted, you will see me casting my vote by putting it in bold text and making it flash small and large. I mean, I don't usually vote in these because I'm too busy. So that's my hand on the scale.
Why did you like that so much?
First of all, I work in slang. So I like slingy stuff. Second, it really does represent more than just what's happening with the digital world. We don't need to go into this. It's been well discussed everywhere, but let's just say it's more than online that isn't shitifying. I do feel as I get older, and partly it's just the process of anyone getting older, that things that I trusted and loved are disappearing. Like it's hard to find a print newspaper. I walk around New York City and there are literally none of the newsstands have newspapers. It's the craziest thing. Or bookstores. Bookstores, I think thing that I love in the world. Every time I go in a bookstore, I buy a book because I want them to exist. But they're kind of enshittifying. Like you go in and 2/3 of the stock is greeting cards. You're like, where are the books? I don't need that many ink pens. Stop selling ink pens. Sell me books.
Or clothes that last and are possible to mend.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, particularly
nobody agrees. Maybe it's just a me thing, but
no, as a large man, I totally agree with you. As a large man who is hard on his clothes, I totally agree. That's why I wear Dickies work shirts. They're built for guys who spend their time on the ground underneath automobiles.
You're the second person that told me about Dickies. So apparently they make good pants that don't. So a women problem, maybe also a large man problem. I don't know. Is the chafing, the holes in the pants?
Yeah.
Apparently Dickies pants are supposed to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. This turned into an ad for Dickies, but it's the only brand I've heard of where you don't get holes in your pants. Yeah. Also, funny name, Dickies.
Anyway, Enpoopification. Yes, Enpoopification. Actually, I thought it was a fantastic word. I was glad to see Corey talking about it very intelligently and really encapsulating the problems with some of what's happening in the world. He's a great thinker, and I think he's a good propagator of good ideas.
Yeah, well, we were really stoked that Enpoopification won the ADS vote. It was our word of the week of the year. Thanks to Lord Mortis and Cory Doctorow, who appeared on the show. So that was really fun.
Lord Mortis.
Yes.
So, were there any others from the list that you want to talk about besides Enpoopification?
From the word of the year list, no.
Yeah.
It was really the only winner for me. The rest of them, as you can see by the votes, derogatory in parentheses was like really pushed heavily from the floor by the younger set. It's a thing that you do where their example was if, he went to Harvard University, and then in parentheses you put derogatory, meaning that you don't think that's a good thing. It's just a way of tagging, like kind of post-tagging something with the way that your reader is supposed to understand it. But this is just another form. This is just another form of paralinguistic restitution. Restoring to the written text things that are obvious in spoken text,
but in a very dictionary way. I mean, that's like a usage note, right?
Yeah. It kind of behaves like a dictionary label. That's true.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, thank you for talking through these words. There was one that we missed. Humanitarian pause. Prena on Facebook suggested that one.
It came in quite late, to be fair. Like, as in, that was happening right as you were building all of your like lists and stuff, Daniel.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have a personal word of the year?
Oh,
because I do.
Personal word of the year.
My personal word of the year is maintenance. I found that so much of life gets better when you pay attention to upkeep and putting in time to improve on the boring stuff. And that's kind of a personal goal for me. So maintenance.
I don't think I have one from this year. I'm just trying to think.
Well, make one up.
What seems
What seems significant to you?
You got a cat this year, right?
I did. What? Second pet syndrome. How about that?
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yep. It's not as good as the first one. But interestingly, it makes me really love the first one even more.
Oh, because it's hard for them. I think second pet syndrome is something that first pets go through.
Can I just... So the thing that I giggled about 10 minutes ago, and it's because my beautiful, gorgeous angel baby cat, my older cat, was just like lying there, having a great time, and my young kitten cat came up and just, which she does dozens of times a day, and just looked at my cat in true younger sibling, older sibling dynamic and was just like, "You're way too fucking comfortable. Let's fix that."
Yeah.
Well, we have to leave it there, but I'd like to say, Grant, thanks so much. And if you want to get more of this Grant person, which I know you do, you want to listen to A Way with Words, which they can get on waywardradio.org. And how else can people find out about you?
GrantBarrett.com, 2 R's, 2 T's, or find our show in any podcast app.
Awesome.
And in the United States, we're on public radio stations from coast to coast, bleeding into Canada and Mexico.
Grant, we love having you on the show. It is so fun to have a chat with you.
Thank you for putting up with my nonsense, and it was really nice to spend this time with the three of you.
Thank you for putting up with our nonsense.
And our mass murder. That wasn't, our greatest moment.
The Hedvig-sanctioned genocide so that all lexicographers can lay down.
Thanks also to speech docs who transcribe all our words and our patrons who keep the show going.
Is it my turn? It's my turn.
It's your turn. It's your turn.
Hey. I'm gonna read the language exactly as it is in my little script because it's like really blunt and direct. I'm gonna sound so Netherlandsy right now.
You were meant to elaborate on that. Maybe you give the straight version and then I'll translate.
I'm gonna come at this from the Dutchest of possible directions.
Okay, very Swedishly.
Support Because Language by telling a friend about us. Leave a review. Give us ideas and feedback. Lots of ways do that. Message us on the socials where we are at BecauseLangPod on all platform. Leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe, or just another way, send us an email, hello@becauselanguage.com. The only problem is I imbued even my voice with far too much
You did.
Je de vivre, it should have been far more robotic. But linguistically, I felt that was very Dutch.
Well, it was straightforward. I appreciate that.
Direct.
Yeah. Now it's my turn. We are grateful to everyone who supports our show and who do it especially by being a supporter on Patreon. They make it possible for us to make regular episodes for free and get transcripts, and they get cute little bonuses like the mail out that we just talked about. Live episodes, they get to look at our cats and other things on Discord, and it's very nice. We want to give a special shout out to our top patrons, and they are Termi, Elias, Matt, Whitney, Helen, Jack, Farracat, Lord Mortis, Lissa, Grammar, and the name here is spelled differently from grammar. Oh, because we found out. They wrote. Yes.
They did.
They are grammar-en.
Grammar-yen.
Right?
It's not grammar-yen. Here I've been saying grammar-yen, but it's grammar-yen. Isn't that cute?
Grammarian.
Grammarian.
Grammarian. Renee, Christopher, Andy, James, Nigel, Meredith, Kate, Nasrin, Joanna, Nikolai, Keith, Aisha, Steele, Margaret, Manu, Diego, Aria Flame, who recently bumped up to the supporter level, Roger, Rianne, Colleen, Ignacio, Kevin, Andy from Logophilius, Stan, Kathy, Raj, Cheyenne, Felicity, Amir, Canny Archer, Tim, Alyssa, Chris, Angry Balls, Tag, Luis, and Raina, and we have 2 new patrons on our friend level, and they are Kim and Matthias EC. Thank you to all of you.
Grant, do you want to take this last bit?
The Because Language theme music was written and performed by Drew Kaplianov, who also performs with Ryan Vino and Didion's Bible. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Because Language.
Lovely.
Very well.
Grant, you are a lovely
That was
man.
super good.
I should do radio.
Well, you are
should.
now, you have another podcast under your belt because you are an official co-host. It
I
is
gotta say, you guys
non-negotiable.
are. I'm waiting for the embossed jacket, the embroidered jacket. Just waiting for the
We
silk.
need to make that happen.
Wear this.
We can do
Maybe
that.
I'm
dressing
thinking
gown.
a really 80s, all polyester, spray jacket kind of thing.
Purple and
With
green.
netting on the inside, purple and green, exactly right. Yeah, you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm signing off on all this.
What about Ryan Gosling's
Or orange.
Ryan Gosling's jacket
blue.
in Drive? Could that
Yeah, no,
There
no,
we
no, no,
go.
that was too
That's not even a-
satiny. No, I'm talking a little bit more matte.
be? Okay. We'll make it
A little
happen.
more, man.
We'll send it. I have to tell you this story. I'm at the grocery store and I'm looking at beans, and near me there's some young people doing the shelving, and they're talking loud, so they don't really care who's listening. And one of them says something like, something about keeping up with new slang. And of course, I'm right next to him looking at beans, and I say, "Ooh, new slang. What have you noticed? Young person." And so
Just
he
to be
starts,
clear, you cold-cocked this poor teenager. You just inserted yourself into their slang conversation.
he wasn't here for this. He's not making heaps of dosh on this job. He doesn't need.
So you've decided, okay, what needs to happen to extract greater value from this nascent worker is he needs to provide me with slang.
Because there's something he didn't know, and that was that he was next to a titan of linguistics podcasting, who was
who was
ready to
that?
hang on his every word. That was me. It's me, Grant.
I was confused.
I was like, oh, wow, Hedvig was in Perth? She didn't
Oh
call
wow,
me.
Grant was in Perth.
She's a traveler, yeah. Hedwig's
Who is
all
this
over.
mysterious person?
So what did you learn as we
Yeah,
tangent
come
and
on,
tangent
lay
tangent?
it on us.
He busted out a few, but they were old. He brought out Bussin',
Okay.
and I forget, there was one from 2022 or something. And so he had, I was able to give definitions for everything. Bussing is tasty food, of course, comes from African American English, and a few others. And then I asked if he'd heard Riz. He had. I told him that someone once told me to stick out my gyat for the Rizzler, but I didn't know why or how. And I have to think that in that moment, he was impressed.
You don't have to think it. You choose to think it. Let's be really clear here. You absolutely don't have to. There is no compulsion. You make a choice, sir.
This
Sorry,
is
Grant.
where a middle-aged white man lives, speaking from experience. We look for whatever signs of approval we can get.
Excuse me, but this story was about how up-to-date I am. That's what
Yep.
this...
That's
You missed that part.
That
Oh.
is definitely the
I'm a little,
takeaway I
I'm a little
acquired.
slow. It's 5:09 a.m. here.
Oh, good. You are doing the Lord's work, Grant.
Daniel called. I answered. But you know how when you're 13, you had rock and roll crushes on Lita Ford or the Anna Nancy Wilson.
Yes.
Ben, I think you're too young for that. But
I was just
Daniel's
gonna
more
look-
my age.
Yep.
But
hear
you
ya.
know, these badass rock and roll chicks, that's how I feel about Hedvig. Not quite a crush, but still just admiring. Very good
Yeah,
at what
yeah,
she
yeah.
does. Yeah.
Yep.
I think we could have drinks together.
This is appropriate.
Who are your rock and roll crushes, Daniel? Those were mine. There was all these rock chicks, mainstream rock chicks.
Definitely Kate Bush.
Oh, Kate Bush.
Kate Bush.
I knew so many young women just like her in a way, not British, but like kind of like ethereal, going their own way, not really caring at all whatsoever how they present it to the world.
Kate Bush felt like she was she was like I know there's considerable overlap between these two things, so like don't come at me too hard, but like Kate Bush was like proto Björk. Like they seem to have a very similar vibe, right? Which is just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And most of it is going to be like weird nonsense stuff and you're going to love it. And then the whole world was like, we do love it.
We do love it. We do love it. And then also having control of like image and dance and media.
And just doing it completely their own way.
Yeah. I love your voice. That's all I'm saying. Just like it's the perfect, pleasant podcast voice that I feel like I'm getting wisdom of the ages when you speak, Hedvig. So,
and you are.
Do you know what I love most about this Hedvig is that he said all of these lovely things before you joined, and my brain initially was like, oh, I could make a joke, like a really bad one, about how we were saying awful things, and then I was like, no, her hearing nice things is going to be.
You know what we talked about before, that if you say nice things, we're just going to be cruel back?
Shit.
This is not doing great things for you.
All right, so when I get these anonymous little bitchy emails, I know who they came from. Daniel.
Well, just remember, she's coming to kill everyone and you'll be second last, Grant. So she can be like, look, Grant, you can sleep now.
She's a
They're all gone.
Yes.
They're all dead.
I will do that.
Nothing but dreams. Oh, yeah. I forgot to say thanks also to you, Ben and Hedvig, for hanging out with me today and making the show awesome. Thank you. You guys
we don't deserve thanks. What are we? We're podcast princesses.
Yes, you are.
Yes.